let's talk about the three main events we got this weekend. So we've got UFC 263 that is, I guess, triple headlined. We have a co-main event, a main event, and a co-main event. The co-main event is Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. The co-main event is Davidson Figueiredo versus Alex Moreno, and the main event is Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori. Let's get that out, Marvin Vettori. So let's talk about Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz first. This is a really, really, really interesting fight. I think Leon Edwards, of course, was on a 7 or 8 fight win streak before he had that no contest versus Bilal Muhammad. And he was calling for a title shot, pretty much saying that I'm not fighting again until I get a title shot. All of a sudden, they go, you're not having a title shot. Do you want to fight Nate Diaz? And they went, yeah, I do want to fight Nate Diaz. So here we are. And Nate Diaz is a funny one because he only fights every couple of years. Aside from the back-to-backs with Conor, I say back-to-backs, I think there was a 6 or 7 month gap in between, but he only fights every couple of years. And he last fought George Masvidal back in December 2019. Which was 2.5 years ago. So, and he didn't look great in that fight. You know, he landed a few things, but Masvidal beat him up in that fight. He got beaten up by George Masvidal. So, you don't get better at something by not doing it. And in the time that Nate Diaz hasn't fought in 2.5 years, Leon Edwards has probably had 6 fights. Shall we see? How many fights has he had since Nate Diaz last fought? We are 1, 2, 3. Oh, he's had 4 fights. I got a little bit excited, but still, he's fought 4 times since Nate Diaz last fought. So Leon Edwards has been active. He's been a little bit unlucky with opponents pulling out and things like that, but he has been one of the most active around. And then you look at Nate Diaz, who hasn't fought in 2.5 years and didn't look great in his last fight. So I have a real trouble when I predict these things. When I predict fights, I always do it with my heart over my head. So my head says Leon Edwards batters Nate Diaz for 5 rounds and wins a decision. And it's unlikely Diaz gets stopped, but obviously at some point everyone gets stopped if you carry on fighting for long enough. And I know he had the Josh Thompson thing. That was a long time ago. Nate Diaz historically has an iron chin. So I'm going to go with a Leon Edwards decision. And it makes me feel sick because I want Nate Diaz to win. I want him to sit out for 2.5 years, come in, beat Leon Edwards, and then call for a title shot. But I don't even want to see Nate Diaz versus Kamaru Usman. I don't even want to watch that. I want to watch Nate Diaz versus either Jorge Masvidal again, or I want to see Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal, or I want to see Nate Diaz versus someone like Colby Covington. There's so many good fights out there for Nate Diaz, and it's frustrating that he's not that active. But those are my thoughts on the Leon Edwards-Nate Diaz fight. But you just get so much more from Nate Diaz in these fight weeks. Like, he's on stage, he's smoking weed, he's not that great on the microphone, but that's not what he's about. He's about the sort of the pomp and everything that goes with Nate Diaz when he's on a fight week. It's just, he flew in on a private jet. They've given him the star treatment. He's got the mansion out in Arizona or wherever the fight is. It's Phoenix, I think it is. So they've given him the mansion. They've given him the private jet. They've gone for the full works for Nate Diaz, and that's the sort of thing that gets us excited. He'll probably be one of the highest paid on the bill. It'll be close between him and Izzy. And of course, those will get released after the fact. But I'm just excited Nate Diaz is fighting again, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. So there you go. But I would imagine Leon Edwards gets this done, and then we'll probably get that rematch with Kamaru Usman, of course, after he takes on Colby Covington, because we've been told that is what the next fight is. So then we move on to the co-main event, which is Davidson Figueiredo versus Alex Moreno. Now, these guys fought back at UFC, might be 252. Am I right in that? Is it 252, or was that a longer time ago? Should we have a look? They fought, I was 256 back in December 2020. I'm on a roll today. And of course, it was a draw, a majority draw. I think one judge gave it to Figueiredo. Now, there's a narrative being pushed from Figueiredo's side that he was unwell, he had an injury, and those things all sort of come out afterwards, and they only ever come out afterwards someone's had a bad performance. So you can take it with a pinch of salt, but at the end of the day, you fight the person that shows up. You can't fight the Figueiredo that strangled Joseph Benavidez. You can't fight that guy. You have to fight the guy that shows up. Happy, sad, sick or indifferent, you turn up to fight, and whoever you're fighting is fighting that version of you. So it's no plus or minus that they're bringing that up. You were you on the day, you had that performance, and that's the end of it. So if you're going to bring up things like that, then you have to perform now against Alex Moreno. Now, I think Alex Moreno missed his chance. I think he's a very good fighter. He obviously came through the Contender Series, and he got the opportunity, and he did very, very, very well, but he didn't get it done. And I think he's going to regret that, because now Figueiredo knows about Alex Moreno. He'll be taking this as seriously as possible. If he did have an injury, hopefully it's gone now. And I think Deiveson Figueiredo will make an example of Alex Moreno, and I think he'll batter him. But this was a very close run-up Fight of the Year candidate. Of course, it lost out to Joanna and Wei Li. But yeah, Deiveson Figueiredo is going to take out Alex Moreno. I just hope a lot of people watch it. And a lot of my friends always talk about, they're the small guys, they're not fun, they don't knock each other out. Some of those guys put on the best fights. It's just very hard to sell it. And I don't know if I buy into that narrative, because Floyd Mayweather was small. Manny Pacquiao was small. We moved away from the heavyweight boxing being the number one with your Lennox Lewis's and your Mike Tyson's and your Evander Holyfields and all that sort of stuff. We moved away from that and we moved towards, this is probably mainly the Klitschko's fault because they were terrible, boring. They're good boxers, but they're boring. We moved away from that towards the Floyd Mayweathers. So that hasn't really contrasted in the UFC too much. And I think it's more the characters than it is the weight class, because, Conor was fighting at 145. No one cared about 145. No one cared about Jose Aldo until Conor came along. So it's about the characters. And I think Figueiredo's doing a good job at marketing himself and becoming a character, but he has to get this done to carry that on. He has to. And I think when he's Brazilian, it's tough. It's tough in America to become a star when you're Brazilian, and I don't really know why. Anderson Silva wasn't a draw. Jose Aldo wasn't a draw. Neither Nogueira brothers were a draw. It's just a tough thing to do. So those are my thoughts on that. The main event, of course, the middleweight titles on the line. Israel Adesanya takes on Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori has not blown me away in any single fight he's had. I find him a little bit dull. Yes, it's great. He could be the first Italian world champion. I would suggest he won't be. And I'm pretty confident in saying that. Israel Adesanya, of course, last time out lost to Jan Blachowicz narrowly, but he lost to Jan Blachowicz. The UFC has completely swept that under the carpet when marketing this fight, because that's what you do. They took a risk with it. It obviously didn't work. So Izzy is acting like nothing's happened, or the UFC is acting like nothing's happened, until, of course, Jan Blachowicz's next fight comes up, and then they'll start marketing it again, and that's how it works, and we know that's how it works. But Marvin Vettori's wrestling is not that great. He is Italian. They notoriously don't have world-famous wrestling, and I know that is a skill you can learn. I'm not that naive to think that you can't just because you're in another country, but people are looking at his wrestling against Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's not a wrestler. He's just not. And people are looking at his wrestling. Jack Hermansson, fine. But the three previous gentlemen that he fought before that, I couldn't tell you their names because no one knows. He hasn't gone through the top 10 like you would expect a title challenger to do. Now, they asked Robert Whittaker if he wanted the fight. He was not ready to take the fight because he just finished fighting. So the UFC rolls on. They give the shot to Vettori. So Israel Adesanya should deal with this. And if he is a champion, he will deal with this. I don't think Marvin Vettori is as good as people would have you think. I think there are lots of holes in his game. I think he will lose this fight. I think Izzy will win, and I would like to see Vettori versus Darren Till, which is what we were supposed to get after this happens. But those are my thoughts. I think I wasn't that fussed about this fight, and then, like I said earlier, the pre-fight press conference happened, and Vettori's doing his bit, and I like that a lot. He's trying to make us want to watch it. He's trying to give us something to talk about. He's trying to make us care. Israel Adesanya's got a lot to prove after that fight against Jan Blachowicz. He didn't look terrible. He didn't do himself a disservice, but he did lose. And that kind of allure and that mystique of Israel Adesanya did go in that fight. And we will soon forget about that if he turns up against Marvin Vettori and causes him all sorts of problems and makes a light work out of Marvin Vettori. So those are my thoughts for UFC 263. Let me know what you think. I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't been this excited for a pay-per-view in a little while. Of course, in a month's time, we'll get UFC 264, which is McGregor-Poirier. So this is kind of the start, and they keep on rolling. We've also got Sandhagen versus Dillashaw coming up. So lots to be excited about.